learned a long time ago, there's a saying, and the saying is that if everyone is thinking alike, no one is thinking. And there's a lot of truth to that, that just don't accept everything. When I say think, I mean it in the sense of analysis. And is it right? Does it make sense? Can it be improved? What things can be done to make yourself better, your family better, your life better, your state better, your community better, your place of employment better? Don't be shy about sharing your views, because what you may think, well, I don't know if I should actually say that. What if it doesn't make a lot of sense? Well, if it doesn't make a lot of sense, okay, you've at least expressed your thought, and if someone who is hearing it is respectful, they will still listen to it, and then there'll be a discussion. But I've met people who thought they didn't have any good ideas, and when they were actually coaxed to give their thoughts and ideas, some of the best ideas I've ever had. I'll tell you this one quick story. Again, during the pandemic, when we decided, the Pedo Opportunity Connection decided that it was going to first form and then start helping these communities, we had focus groups in the communities to try to learn what is it that community really wants. Because there are different communities. What do they actually want? There was a Laotian community, Hispanic community, an African American community, a Native American community, and they all had different wants and needs for their communities and for their cultures. And rather than assume you know what they want, ask and find out, what does that community actually want and need? And I went to all of those meetings, and it struck me that there were no young people there. I mean, teenagers, high school, they just weren't there. And I said to the leaders of the community, why aren't the young people here? And they said, oh, they don't care. They're not engaged. They're just on social media. They don't care. I said, I don't believe that. I do not believe that. I believe that they do care. Maybe they're not being given an opportunity to express their views, to have their voices heard, but I believe they care. And I said, I'm going to come up with a way to test this. And so we came up with an idea. It's called the Transform Rhode Island Scholarship. And what it is we ask the students this question. It was open to all the high school students in our state. This was the question. If you had $1 million, how would you use that money to improve the lives in your community? What would you do if you had $1 million? And the students could write an essay, they could do a PowerPoint, they could do a video, they could do whatever they wanted, and they could apply. And there were monetary scholarships. If you win, you got a scholarship money, ranging from $25,000, which is a lot, to 10 winners. But the really, really great thing is the winner, the person who came up with the best idea of how to improve the community if they had $1 million, is we take $1 million of our money and we implement that idea. So the student's idea becomes a reality in the community. And we have now done this for 4 years. This is our 4th year. And each year, a young student comes up with an idea that will help transform his or her community, and we take $1 million and make that idea into a reality. So those students said, this changed our lives. We really didn't believe that we could do something like this. And even if the student didn't win, any of the scholarships. The fact that they went forward and gave us their ideas, it made them feel creative. It made them feel, I am having my voice heard by someone. And it has uplifted the entire community.
It's not our workload that's killing us. It's our thought load. And so I've coined this new term, thought load, and it's an equation. Two things on the top and one on the bottom. So let me tell you what they are. First, the heavy, heavy cognitive load we're under because of how much we're trying to pay attention to and how distracted we are and how many hours of meetings and how many news articles. Our brains are saturated. That's too much flour. That's the one challenge. The second challenge, the emotional baggage we are trying to walk around the workplace with. Our society is emotionally dysregulated. People are anxious. People are angry. People are hostile. We're seeing it everywhere, and it comes into the workplace. People are taking everything personally. They are in the drama and triggered. So we're trying to cope with all of that. But the load part is that we're trying to cope with all of it as our energy reserves get lower and lower. We're not sleeping well. We're not eating well. We're really exhausted. We're burned out. And so the weight and the burden of the cognitive load and the emotional baggage is even heavier. And so the fun of the book is realizing that we've got great books about focus and great books about emotions and great books about resilience, but I don't think we have anything that's helping managers understand that this is a system where each one of these problems today is amplifying the others. So as our energy goes down, one of the things we know is one of the first things to go is our ability to calibrate what to pay attention to and what not to. So as our energy goes down, that cognitive load goes up. As our energy goes down, our likelihood of experiencing something as emotional or threatening or, he's out to get me goes up. As our anxiety goes up, we tend to try and multitask as a way of dealing with that heavy cognitive load. But we know one of the biggest outcomes of multitasking is increased anxiety and reduced energy. So the new book is a formula for managers for how they can first get their own thought load down. And then how do you lead a team in a way where the most important thing you're doing is managing people's thought load so that these smart, accountable, awesome people can actually do the job they're there to do. But right now, I think managers are contributing to people having an extremely high thought load. It's why we're really not getting as much done. It's why productivity numbers in our economy are terrible. They're not good at all. So we feel like we're doing way too much work. And I would say we're not accomplishing very much work at all. We're doing too many things. We're worrying about too many things. But very little of that energy is actually going into creating outputs and outcomes that affect the world. So that's the recipe in the new book. I'm just finishing the first draft right now, but it takes a long time before a book hits bookshelves. But I'll be sprinkling these ideas everywhere. If you subscribe to my newsletter at lianedavey.com, there'll be lots of information, little drips and jabs and ideas. All year I'm doing my articles and my blogs, and my YouTube channel is all of these ideas leading up to the book. So there's lots for people to learn. You don't have to wait for the book to get some of these tips.
So when I was a little girl, very young, up until primary school, so when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, my family would come up to Cape Cod in our country, which is a part of Massachusetts that sticks out into the water. There's lots of beaches, water, the ocean. My grandparents, my mother's side grandparents, lived here on Cape Cod, sort of where I live now. And I had been born and raised in Maryland, but when I retired, I finally did retire up here to Cape Cod because of those childhood memories with my grandfather. So my granddad had a rowboat, and he would take me out when I was a little girl. My grandma would make us sandwiches, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and my granddad would row the boat out into the bay, not the ocean, but a bay about a mile or two long, like the one I live on now. And he would teach me how to row. And for anybody who's rowed when they're young, you get into a rowboat, you have an oar in each hand. And when you're really little, first of all, the oars are heavy. Second of all, one oar always hits the water before the other, and then your boat goes the wrong way, and you just like wonder, am I ever going to get this little rowboat to go in a straight line? Because there's so many things that I'm just, I can't do this. And so my granddad would show me how to balance the oars and how to get my timing down and be patient. And he was very calm, cool, and collected. So he was a wise man. My granddad was a really wise man, which is interesting to say because he didn't have global travel experience or anything, but he was older. And I really think there's something to do with wisdom that you just don't have as a young person. There is wisdom. It takes time, over a lifetime. So my granddad was a wise man in his own way. And wisdom isn't something you can just put in a jar and sell. My granddad had his own form of wisdom, and that was knowing how to teach a young girl, how to pass it on to a young girl to help her have an experience on the water where I could eventually dominate those oars and I could row. And then once we rowed out into the middle of the bay, we could eat our sandwich. I could dive down and swim and find clams and have a great time. And it was all because I learned how to row out into the water and to do something hard and get there and then have the experience, the fun of being there. But yeah, my granddad taught me that. He taught me the perseverance, that there's a reward once you learn something. He taught me to love the water because otherwise I wouldn't have had a connection with the water and wouldn't have thought about the Naval Academy, the Coast Guard Academy. And that little experience as a girl that my grandfather gave me set the course for my entire life. So what I would say is, for anybody out there who's watching right now, there's somebody in your life who's younger than you, who's more inexperienced than you, who's less capable than you, that you can guide and mentor and pass on your wisdom. You might not have a whole lot of wisdom, but you have got more than they do in different ways. So I would challenge people to find a way to pass on something to somebody else who needs it, either at work or at home, a young little girl like me or an older person that needs some encouragement. So there's all kinds of ways you can pass your wisdom along, and you never know what kind of an impact it's going to make. And my granddad taking me out on the ocean, on the water when I was young, set the course for my entire rest of my life. And he would never know that he had made that impact on me because he ended up dying before I graduated from the Coast Guard Academy. So he never knew the impact he made. And so that's another thing about this delayed gratification. A lot of the things you do today, you're not going to ever see the benefits from, but you have to look inward and do what's right, do the right thing, and understand that a lot of what you're doing is planting seeds for the future. And that's what it's all about, is giving back the wisdom. And it doesn't mean you have to reap benefits from it. You need to learn to be selfless, and that's where that self-reflection comes in, like time in the pool, the time I've spent on sailboats, reflecting back on who I am. And then at this older age of life, that's why I wrote the book, is to give back the leadership lessons and maybe some of the wisdom that I garnered during this 40 years serving in uniform.
Thomas, over the years, how have you been sharpening and expanding your ability to think that you can share with us so that we can learn from the expert like you?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is that learning and thinking to me belong together, right? So for me, I think one of the people who think more deeply and think better are people who are learners, you know. So you could be spending 6 hours on Instagram or TikTok or whatever and watching, you know, people fall in puddles or cats that jump from trees. I mean, that's fine. You could do that. Or you could be reading a book. You could be reading a story. You could be learning about how nature works, how humans work, right? So for me, learning to think is learning, first of all. I think the second thing about thinking that I really believe in is focus. And by the way, I'm struggling with that. So it's a lifelong learning experience. What's important to me, the most important good that helps us think is time. And for me, the question is, on your schedule, where's your thinking time? You know, just look at your schedule. Tell me when you're thinking. You know, so for me, focusing on that in a deliberate fashion is important. One way for me to think is to write. Like, write down a thought. Kind of another way to think is to teach, right? Kind of, if I can explain it to you, I know I've understood it. Frankly, not before. It's really hard to be sure that you understood a problem if you've not taught it to others. But the focus is a mental state. Of course, there's practitioners who teach you how to do that, you know, from your side of the world, right? You know, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation techniques, right? Kind of calming your mind is a good thing. My version of that is I go outdoors a lot. I go run. I move my body. Kind of thinking also means to be in a healthy body, right? You know, so for me, that's the other thing that really matters. But really giving your time the focus that your mind the focus that it takes. There's a final point that matters, and it's mattering differently for different people. I think well with other people. So some of my best ideas happen in the presence of other people. Not everybody is the same. There are people that need to be for 24 hours by themselves, then they have the best ideas. Or they have understanding. Again, I need my alone time too, but if it comes to thinking of new ideas, often it has to do with interaction of trusted individuals other than me. Also people who think differently than me. So that's another element of it. I mean, so those are kind of the pieces. I just, kind of the rule that I really always say, kind of whether it's about thinking or about other things, show me your calendar and I'll tell you what's important to you. So kind of if you say my goal is to do X and Y, your calendar does not show that. It's not important to you. You just talk about it. And so if your goal is to improve your thinking and your knowledge, show it when you do that in your life. It takes time to get better. I don't care what it is. Whether you want to get better in sports, whether you want to get better in science, thinking, get better learning about other people, it needs to be time that you spend. Time is the most precious good for everything.
Wow.
Well, I think in every one of those moments for me, I can now look back, perhaps through my wisdom gear, and see all of the little things I was doing every day to prepare for that moment.
Wow.
So I'll give you an example, because a lot of young students come to me. We're right next door to the University of Michigan, and a lot of students hear about me. They reach out. They want to come talk to me. They want somewhat ask the same kinds of questions you're asking, but they're in their early 20s at that point. And they ask me often, what advice do you have for me as I go out into the work world? And I tell them that the most important thing I learned to do when I got my first jobs is to do this, to raise my hand and volunteer for things. And I say, let me tell you how that worked for me. And part of it was, I think in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to have my own business. That was just a kind of a bucket list goal for me. And so I said, I was a programmer. I was a technical person. I had studied computer science at the University of Michigan. So I knew that the value I was being paid for was to create software with my fingers and my brain. That was how I produced value. But if I wanted to grow, I needed to have different experiences. It couldn't just be technical experiences. So when the salesperson came into the room of engineers and said, hey, I'm going on a customer visit. I need an engineer to come with me to explain our products to our potential clients. I raised my hand and I said, I'll go. When the HR director said, hey, we're planning the holiday party for our team, and I need a few people to help me plan it and execute it. And I said, I can help with that. Wow. When the manufacturing team that was building the little electronic products that we were shipping said, hey, we're really behind on shipments. We need a few extra hands back in manufacturing to help build the products. I said, I can help with that. When somebody said, hey, we're going to a trade show in Las Vegas, we need somebody to help build the booth, man the booth, talk to potential customers, I can help with that. And I would say that all of those in the moment learning opportunities were done minute by minute, day by day, week by week, year by year, so that when later those really big moments happened, I had all of this body of experience, knowledge, and wisdom built up from those other moments where I raised my hand that, it often, there is a phrase that says fortune favors the prepared mind. And, and I think, my instinct was I wanted to have those other kinds of experiences. I wasn't, because I think that a lot of times people are like, no, you just wait. And you wait till the opportunity comes and it will be handed to you. And I've just never seen that happen. It's always based on the minute day-by-day things you do to prepare yourself for those big moments.
Wow.
And again, I think reading books is another big part of that too.
I will bring Miss Marsha to this conversation because I had the pleasure of having Marsha as my guest at the LinkedIn Live that I do once a month. And just about the end of the conversation, I said, Marsha, so what's your message? Just exactly the question you asked me. And Marsha, being such an experienced and absolutely fantastic coach, she got quiet for a second and then she said, be patient. Be patient. She said, be patient with yourself. You're not gonna become an MCC coach overnight. Be patient. Be patient with your clients. They will not get the absolute every possible benefit of coaching in their first session. Be patient. Be patient. Look into what is available as new areas of growth and learning for you and your client at the same time. Learn it, then share it. Be patient. So I was like, oh, okay. And the other message that I would share is with the clients. And it is, even if you don't know much about coaching, try it. Try it. It will change your life. So do your due diligence. Know what to look for, not what not to look for. Coaching is not a silver bullet and a solution for everything. But when you think that's exactly what you should be doing, do it. Do it. It's not a big investment. And you may just have a transformation for your life.
So success is a terrific word. We just use it wrong. So success to me. So let me deviate from achievement. Achievement is something you did that you should be proud of. But if you achieve things, you expect to continue to achieve them, and the expectation of continued achievement leads to a lot of anxiety and problems, and that is not success. That is the root of mental health issue. It's why pro athletes that seem to have everything on a silver platter, they crumble under that expectation. And you have helicopter parents and everything all the way from the ground up that can make that really challenging. To me, success is the ability to invest time in stuff you love. And that is the only qualitative definition that I'll ever subscribe to. Because that definition sounds like it should change over time, because it should. My definition, so I'm a simple guy, right? Like, I love science, I love my career. I play golf, and I like to try to stay in shape. And that's really about all there is to me. Like, I don't have a lot to me there with it. Pre-kids, I was like, I think if I practice as hard as I possibly can, maybe I can be a pro golfer. But like, my brain totally could allow that to happen. I mean, I'm not that good. So that definitely not that good. I'm not good. Tiger Woods is not talking to you on the phone right now, but I was like, man, if I just practice like really hard, maybe I could go pro. And I realized, like, I love golf. I really love golf. It's an incredibly challenging, physically, intellectual thing. I mean, I hate it just as much as I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. But like that's enjoyable to me. I think maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's a sunk cost. I have kids, and playing golf. To be good at it, it's a lot of time. I mean, you have putt and chip and bunker shots and iron shots and drivers and wedges and everything in between. And, I just don't have as much time to play. And I still want to be good just as much as I possibly could be, ever. But, like, I play maybe a 9-hole round. I'm like one day during the week, and 18 holes. I'm like one day on the weekend. So, like, pro golfers are playing every day. Not going to be me. I don't have that time. So I got to adjust expectations, right? Like, I'm just not there. Because my priorities are like, yeah, I might play golf on Saturday morning at, first thing with the first tee time there, but I'm going to spend the afternoon not chipping and putting. I'm going to go run to the park with my kids and chase them and play ball or whatever we're doing there. And, that definition of success is not what I thought it was 10 years ago, right? Like, success to me was making a ton of money and being important. And then, you get to making the money you thought you wanted to make. Maybe it's not $10 million a year or something like that, but being important. And you're like, what does important mean? What is important? Like, and you start asking yourself all these questions. At least that's what I did. And, especially as I'm watching myself, if you asked 24-year-old Justin what he wanted to be doing, you'd be looking at the guy that he wanted to be right now, right in front of you there. And the guy talking to you has a lot of regrets from a lot of time he spent on the road, all over the world, all the time that I couldn't spend at home that I wanted to, because I didn't know I wanted that. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea that the career that I was taking on had so many nuances to it in terms of being places, physically being places. I had to be places to do what I'm doing right now. And when you're doing that, your children are at home and they're getting into sports and they're trying stuff. And there's this, I call it the dichotomy of success, right? And that's why I hate this word, where maybe I'm professionally successful more than I ever thought I'd be, but I suck at home. I'm being a crummy dad. Maybe I'm not being a crummy dad. Maybe it's okay. Maybe I'm being an average dad, but is average okay? Is that what, when I'm 70 years old, what am I going to care about when I'm 70? I'm trying to predict who I'm going to be 40 years from now, right? To determine my level of happiness. And you're just like, holy cow, this is way more complicated than I thought it was. And I realized really quickly as I started kind of navigating that this is a really, really loaded topic, where if your day-to-day life is spent chasing something where you think being rich and successful or whatever it is something that isn't compatible with what your value system is, you can't ever be happy. Because success, if you don't want to be successful, you want to be happy. Nobody actually wants to be successful. They want to be happy. But they think being successful allows them to be happy. And that game is dangerous, really dangerous. And I learned that, and I'm not good at playing it, by the way. I'm still consistently, the same as all of us there, you're fighting I want to do this, but I need to do that, and I got to do this, but I need to be there, and all that stuff. And there's no easy answer to it, but that difference of where when I'm 25, I want to see the world, I want financial success, I want to be physically in shape. I mean, for me, that was what was important. And you achieve that, and it's like, now what? Doesn't mean I'm happy. I've achieved something. And so I knew right then and there the achievement was not going to do it. It was not the game for me. Like you achieved something. No, I'm happy when I'm spending my time in something that equates or is moving me towards what I think is successful. And I was like, okay, for me, that's being athletic and being healthy and seeing the world and spending time with my wife and blah, blah, blah. And once your definition of success starts to deviate from your day-to-day life, that's when it gets hard. That's when you get frustrated, when you can't control your life. And I look at a lot of people that are amazing people that are just, they have grit and perseverance and stuff. A lot of traits that I wish I had better myself, but they're just not in a position where they're able to achieve the stuff that they think is valuable to them there, and they struggle. There's mental health. There's just flailing, they're drowning in their day-to-day life, and they're miserable. And the unfortunate thing, especially in America, the unfortunate thing is that there's a lot. I mean, I couldn't state a number to it there, but it's probably half the people in America are probably in that boat in some way, shape, or form, where they think they're expected to be here and they're over here. And over here is probably totally fine, but you have a house and a family, and your people, your kids, your daughter and your son are healthy, or whatever it is, but they think they're supposed to be here, and you live every day thinking that you're not fulfilling some requirement that you didn't make up. I don't know who made it up, but someone said that you should be over here, and I'm like, I think I need to say something, just because I'm a regular guy and I've fought through it myself, and I've looked at it, and I've had some really good role models that have had a really strong influence on my life, and I don't know, they've opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I'm not perfect at it. I think my TED Talk talked a lot about it there, where I suck. I absolutely suck at doing this, but I'm aware of it. I can always talk about it.
All right, so before I zoom into a chapter, I want to just talk about the framework that we created in the book, right? So we have all this academic research, we have the paper that was published, and it's all these practices. But, the truth is, people are busy, leaders are busy, and nobody is really taking the time to read academic research and translate it into practices. And so Wes and I did that. We took the academic research and we translated it into a framework that's really accessible for leaders. And it's what we call the 3 C's of meaningful work. And the 3 C's are community, contribution, and challenge. And these are the ingredients for meaningful work from what we found in our research. So community is about understanding that you matter, like feeling that you matter to the organization as an individual. And so it's about feeling that you belong and that you can show up authentically and that people care about you. So that's community. Contribution is feeling that what you do matters. Like, I spend my whole day working on spreadsheets and responding to emails. How does this matter to the organization? So understanding the impact that what we do has to others, and it can be to our team, it can be to our customer, right? So anything outside the self. How does what I do make a difference every day? And then challenge is about feeling like your growth and development matters to the organization and the leaders in the organization. So challenge is about having opportunities to reach your full potential. It's having leaders who believe in you, who see your strengths, and who give you kind of a push into growing and learning, and are challenging you to do the hard thing because they believe in you. And so these are the 3 C's: community, contribution, and challenge.
So how have you been growing your ability to think over the years?
When Randy and I were starting the Entertainment Technology Center, before we had students, we would fly out to California and meet with the heads of all these companies that we knew that our students would want to work for. And so we went out and we met with Pixar. Now this is Pixar right after they made Toy Story. Okay, so they were still the little company that could in San Rafael, California, in Marin County. And Randy and I were like taking bets because we were going to ask them being John Lasseter, the Chief Creative Officer of Pixar, and Ed Catmull, the Chief Technology Officer, if there is only one class that they would want every Pixar employee to have taken, what would that be? And so in the hotel, Randy and I are like, oh, they're going to want C++ programming. No, they're going to want C# programming. No, they're going to want this. We go meet in the meeting. We ask that question. And Ed Catmull, the Chief Technology Officer, says, improvisational acting. And I'm like, huh? Because I had suggested improvisational acting back in Pittsburgh before the trip because I viewed it as the only living example of non-linear storytelling, which is what it is, because you don't know what's going to happen, but you've got to be on your toes for when the ideas come, when the actor says something. And I said to Ed Catmull, wow, why do you say that? And he says, because it's the best team building exercise. It's team building because in improvisational acting, it only works if your response to everything is yes and. Yes and. So I might start off saying, okay, it's a domestic story and we're all in the kitchen and I'm going to be mother and you're going to be the father. And then all of a sudden the father says, well, I've got something to be honest with you. I'm actually an alien from outer space. You don't sit there going, well, that's stupid. That's stupid. Instead, you've got to go, okay, didn't see that coming. All right, let me build upon that.
Uh-huh.
And so I've always made it a point to willfully engage in something I don't know, but which is popular among a particular demographic, like young people. Esports was that, okay? Esports. I didn't know what the hell esports was until, like in Korea, they have what are called PC bong, and bong is Korean word meaning room, so PC room, and you go in there and they're playing video games. It's like, okay, all right. But it was from there that they started to do esports. And it was like, wow, what is this thing? Called esports. And I started to hang out with them, knowing that I don't play those games. My fingers ain't going to do what you can do. But clearly you're fascinated by this. Clearly you're immersed in this. So why? What's the appeal? And that's how I learn. I listen to them. I ask questions. And the funny thing is, I'm now considered an expert on the esports industry. I don't play the games, but I can tell you where the money is. I can tell you what are the up and coming games. I can tell you what the teams are. I can tell you the best tournaments and all that. So, and all of that is by approaching people that know more than I do, saying, teach me or let me learn from you.
I had a little bit of an aha for myself, actually. Like, oh, that makes sense. And it made sense because I had just written a book in 2012 called Dare, Dream, Do. It was my first book. And the whole genesis of that book was I had gone to Wall Street and I had been successful. And I was so excited, like, I did this thing. This is amazing. And so then I was having other conversations with women and asking them what their dreams were. And many of them were saying, I don't have dreams. And these are really capable people. But there was something behind that felt like it was, I don't believe it's my privilege to dream. And so I think that there was this aha or this understanding of maybe that many of the women, again, this would be women that were born probably 60s and 70s, maybe 80s. So it's a slightly different generation that, maybe they didn't have a dream, or maybe I didn't have a dream because I didn't know that it was my privilege to think about I want to do something else. So it was more of a validating moment, but also a big aha of making sure that we, with every human being, not just girls, but girls and boys, help them believe that it is your privilege to dream. It is your privilege to be on this planet. It is your privilege and your birthright to be a person who gets to fulfill, the measure of your creation. Like that is our God-given birthright. And so to make sure that we, as the older generation, help seed that with every person that we come in contact with.